There are times when we create a logo design, we design in such a way that we end up with a stack of elements. This is common of logos which are centre aligned with a symbol above. Stacking is also a go-to solution when we have a lot of text. When we lay out the logo in such a way, however, we encounter a problem. When we stack text, we create a visual repetition of the same kind of element. The perceiver sees line after line of text and subconsciously it loses a degree of interest. The solution here is to create variation. We create variation by introducing a type of ornament known as a horizontal rule. The horizontal rule not only breaks up the spacing between text lines, it also adds a new visual element in the logo piece, even if it's just a simple line. Now here we have three logos. The two on the left feature 3 element stacks. So we have the symbol, we have 91 seconds here and on film as the tagline. In the next we have the dog as a symbol, wicked smart and music beneath. So we have 3 element stacks here. The one on the right, however, is a wine glass, the oak bridge, the horizontal rule, and wine co. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements. Without the horizontal rule, we have 4 elements. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this would look without the horizontal rule. Now we click upon this, and we'll delete that, and we'll move this up slightly. Now you might observe that we've kind of lost this wine co line of text now because there's too much going on text wise. We have the symbol, we have the oak bridge and the wine, and they're all clustered together. And particularly the wine co at the bottom is lost because it's the 3rd in the stack at the bottom. In other words, it's the last line that we read. And so for this reason, because of this stack, we'd utilise a divider known as a horizontal rule so that the final line of text becomes separated and distinguished. Now to satisfy curiosity, you might be wondering how the other 2 logos would look with a horizontal rule. So let's go ahead and select the first. We'll make a copy with Alt and Shift. We'll pull one down and I'm going to go to Object, Ungroup. And holding Shift to keep it locked on the vertical, I'm going to drag down on film and I'm going to select no fill and I'm going to select black as the stroke to begin, and I'm going to select the line segment tool and I'm simply going to drag across a line like so, and I'm going to go to Object, Expand, ensuring stroke selected, clicking OK, and I'm going to match this with the colour picker, the eyedropper tool, match it with the colour of the logo. Now using the keyboard up arrow, I'm just going to move this up and I'm going to do the same with on film. Now let's go ahead and do the same with the next logo and we'll go back and review both. Go to Object, Ungroup. I'm going to bring down this tagline. And I'm just going to drag across this one here. Oh, we'll match it the grey colour. And there we have it. Now, you might think that this looks reasonably good, which it does, but we don't want to introduce too many elements into a nice clean logo design unless the element is strictly necessary. Here, because we only have a stack of 3, this horizontal rule only adds clutter to the design. Likewise, it does the same with this logo here. So we perhaps only utilise a horizontal rule when it's necessary to separate and distinguish text elements. So if you have a large stack of text, it's often a good idea to consider using a horizontal rule. Sometimes in logo design, when we come to inserting the tagline, it might feel a little bit unbalanced even if it's centered. Now this is where we can employ bullet points. If we look at the first example, you might see that film and photography, which is in lowercase, looks a little bit unbalanced and out of place. Now if we go to the next example, which has film and photography stretched out to the size of the word Easter above, you might assume that this is the solution. But again, something looks off about this design. So if we go to the next, on the right, you'll see that I've inserted 2 bullet points, one at either side of film and photography. Now I'm sure you'll agree that this tagline in this logo and the logo as a whole looks much better than the other 2 on the left. Now this is because of one particular principle here. Now if we look at the character forms of the tagline, the lowercase characters, you'll see that they have various shapes. The Y, for example, is a lot more different in shape to the R, which is above. The R bends round here and we have a load of negative space here. The E is a curve, whereas the F has a stem. It's basically a vertical line. Now in contrast, if we look at block capital letters, an example down below here, you'll see that they share a similar kind of form, which is the block. You'll see down here, I've put a series of blocks to demonstrate the rough form of these capital letters. And it's because of this that when we use capital letters, it's often more balanced. We do have an exception here of the Y, which isn't so much of a blocky shape, but the general principle of this does apply. If we use capital letters, it looks a lot more balanced. If we use lowercase characters, however, the logo design can look less balanced, and so in comes the potential to use bullet points for balance. So basically, in a nutshell, the chief function of the bullet point is to give the same form at either side of the text line, which in turn gives a balanced look. Okay, here we have the same 3 logos once again. And we discussed previously about lowercase characters having significantly different forms. We talked about the F being different from the E and the Y different from the R, etc. And so we found a potential need here for bullet points, and the form of the bullet point being the same at either side establishes balance. Now, the same obviously applies to the main words of the company name, which is Easter. The E and the R are different in form, so it might look unbalanced. So again, we're not just limited to using bullet points for the tagline, we can also use it for the main name of the company here. So let's go ahead and select this bullet point. And let's utilize this logo on the left as an example. And I'm going to copy this across with Shift and Alt. And there we have bullet points applied to the company name there. And the tagline beneath is without the bullet points. We wouldn't double up on bullet points, otherwise it becomes too detailed and too cluttered. But what we've managed to do here is establish balance on the word Easter. And with that done, this kind of forgives the unbalance in the tagline. So altogether, this logo design piece, with those 2 bullet points at either side of the word Easter, is now a balanced unit. By way of these 3 examples, I'm going to summarise the point of balance, and I'm going to show you a technique that we can use to see if bullet points are justified in a line of text. So we have the lowercase up top with the word Easter. We have next the word Easter in uppercase. And lastly, we have a spin on the word Easter, and I've put an O at the end. So I'm going to select the brush tool, and I've selected a red colour. Now what we do is we trace around the text as close as possible to the characters with the brush tool. Just freehand, going as close as possible. And that's the result for the first line of text. As you'll see, we have the curve on the left hand side and we have that indent on the R. And it's because of this big indent that the balance is knocked off against this curve of the E. And so this would require bullet points at either side, or at least it would be a recommended solution. Next we move on to the uppercase Easter. And again I'm going to use the brush tool to go as close as possible freehand to the characters. And tracing round. And this is the result. Now we see we have an indent here on the R. It isn't as prominent as this R. On the E, we have a little indent as well. So this kind of balances it up against this indent on the right. This would be a medium balance. So it would be up to our best judgment as to whether we use bullet points in this case. So let's move on to the last. Again, we trace round as close as possible to the characters using the brush tool. And we go around the O here with a curve. And we move around and we go around the curve of the E. And as you can see, this offers the perfect balance because we have the curve of the E on the left and we also have the curve of the O on the right, which bears resemblance to the form of the E. So because the O looks like an E, we have a perfect balance here, and this line of text demands no bullet points. So if you're unsure whether to use bullet points by eye alone, you can go ahead and use this technique to see if bullet points are justified.